a couple of days ago I ordered about $1,000 worth of parts to turn this into a CO2 laser cutter, hopefully. All right, if I can make it work. I've never done this before, there are no instructions, so we're going to figure it out together. Now, it's probably going to be at least a month before all those parts get here, according to the tracking info I have, but I need to get started. And so today, what I'm going to do is try to build a bed for the material that we're going to cut. And so on a regular CNC, you want to fasten the material you're machining down firmly to the board using a sacrificial board that will absorb any damage. But with a laser cutter, you don't want your workpiece right down against another board, because as the laser cuts through it, it'll burn that board underneath and the smoke will stain the back of whatever it is you're cutting and possibly catch it on fire. So we want to raise the workpiece up off the bed. We don't have to fasten it down because the light doesn't push on the material in any meaningful way. And I bought this wire cloth that I'm going to use as the surface on which we'll put the stuff, and I need to build a frame to raise that up above my work table, and then fasten some metal underneath that to protect the work table. So that's the plan. I've taken some measurements. This white piece of PVC here represents the area that the laser head will be able to actually reach as the head moves around the machine. And then I measured between the feet so that I know that everything will fit, and I have my measurements written down. And so the next step is to cut the frame that's going to hold the wire cloth, and I have a piece of leftover MDF that I used for making the base, and I'm going to cut it out of that. Okay, I have a frame here that I will put the, the wire fabric over, and that'll give it a gap between this, between the wire that's supporting the work and the bottom. And then this thin frame will go over top of that, and then I'll staple down to hold the wire mesh in place. Now, the laser cutter will be enclosed because there's lots of smoke and fumes when you cut with the laser cutter, and we need to evacuate that outside. And so my thinking is to draw at least some of that from underneath the work, which will both hold the work down if it's covering the whole table, and make it stable. But more importantly, it'll pull the smoke out from underneath the work. And so to do that, I need to cut a gap in here that the smoke can be pulled out through. So that's the next step. And then after that, I'm just going to paint these with the same black chalkboard paint that I painted the base of the unit. And once that's dry, then I can assemble it. So, but I'm going to cut this notch out, and then we'll be ready to paint. I might clean up the corners a little bit, but again, that's not terribly exciting, so I will spare you that. Now, this is MDF, so it's kind of brittle. So the more I cut this, the more flexible it wants to be, the more fragile it becomes. So I need to be careful from here on out. Okay, I just need my hearing protection. Okay, the paint has dried on both of these pieces, so it's time to assemble our laser bed. So, this is the part that will probably be the hardest, getting this wire cloth flat. thought about using tin snips for this, but I decided, even though it was more tedious, that the wire cutters would give me a neater edge. So that's why I did that. Now, the tricky part here is going to be sandwiching this This is where it'd be really useful to have some help, but such is life. And that did not go in straight. That looks reasonably square. Let's try it again. that looks pretty good. And so now what I want to do is put some sheet metal on the bottom to keep the laser from burning through my MDF base of the CNC. So that's the next step. And I have some aluminum flashing here. It's white on one side, black on the other. And I think that'll work quite nicely. So the first step is to cut this down to size. Fortunately, it's exactly the right width. Turn this around this way. If I cut this with tin snips, it would curl and make a mess. It's aluminum, so really all you have to do is score it with a steel blade, and it should crack and get a nice clean edge. So that's what we're going to do. And there we have it, our laser bed. Kind of hard to see, it's the black tabletop here. So yes, so the whatever we want to cut or etch, we'll put on here, and that'll keep it up off the surface, because the focal length of the laser is fairly narrow, so it'll reduce the damage to the bottom. And then of course underneath here we have metal, to protect it even more. And we have our gap here for sucking in the air. I have to come up with something to fasten this to the top, but in my experience, I seldom use the whole area of the laser cutter. You tend to focus near the 0 X and Y axis down here, because most of the things you cut are fairly small. But you know, for larger things, this will do a good job. Next time, I think it might be time to start building the enclosure for the laser to keep the fumes and smoke contained and allow it to be evacuated